Hi everyone, it's been ages since I've done a LitChat, and a lot of you have actually been requesting that I do an updated one. If you're not aware, I'm actually on Goodreads, and I do like to read a lot of books, and I do like to review almost every single book that I read. I mean, if I have time, I'll just write like a little short review of what I thought of it. So if you want to follow me on Goodreads, I will link my profile below. So today I'm actually going to talk about two books that I read. I actually read these a while ago, so that maybe the actual book isn't so fresh in my mind anymore, but I really did want to talk about them because they are just amazing books, and they're both non-fiction books. So if you've never given non-fiction a chance, I would recommend you change that, because a lot of non-fiction books can totally really impact you in a way that maybe fiction can't, because you know that actually the story is real and like that actually happened to somebody. So the first one that I want to talk about is called Behind the Beautiful Forevers: Life, Death and Hope in a Mumbai Undercity, and the author is Katherine Beah. So this book is about this slum called Anawandi, I think, or Anawadi, and it's near the Mumbai airport. So if you've never been to India before, there's this really big difference between rich and poor. So there's a lot of, especially in Mumbai, there's like a lot of very, very rich people. But then there's like this huge mass of people, especially in Mumbai, and they come often from very, very poor areas of the country, like often like a lot of these very rural farming districts, and they come to Mumbai in the hopes of a better future for themselves and their families. So what obviously happens is that there's major overcrowding in Mumbai and all these like really big cities. And that means that all these people who come looking for jobs and looking for a better life, they're often crowded into these really huge slums. And when I was traveling in India, I saw a lot of these slums, and it's crazy, this kind of juxtaposition between the really wealthy lifestyle and then these really poor, desperate people who live in one room with 10 people or even more. Just really, really close, cramped quarters. So this book chronicles the life of several people and families within one of these slums in Mumbai, and it chronicles their life and what happens over a period of, I don't know, it's 4 or 5 years. I'm not quite sure how long it was, but basically it's written by the author, Katherine Beah. She's actually a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, and she did a lot of research and actually lived in this slum with these people. So she had very, very close contact, and yeah, so she kind of tells the story of their lives as if it was from their point of view. Obviously she's telling it as a narrator, but she really tries to get into the way that they live, and she's a really good writer, and I think it was just really interesting to see how is the life of one human valued in these slums, because here we sit in this very comfortable life here in the West, and we think that everyone is equal, but when you actually see how people live in those conditions, it's just a very, very different reality. And it was just interesting to see how their lives change over the period of 4 or 5 years, and who gets ahead, and how do they get ahead in their life, and who fails and why. It talks a lot about class difference even within these slums. There's people slum lords who are at the top, and they kind of take advantage of the people below them to try and get ahead, and there's a lot of police corruption and government corruption, and how this corruption actually, how that actually impacts the people who it's supposed to benefit, these kind of, social programs and stuff. Rarely does the money or these social programs, does it actually get to the people who need it most. So it kind of explains how corruption takes place on all levels, from way at the top all the way down to the very bottom. And it's just an amazing book. It just really touched me, and being someone who has actually traveled to India, it's just interesting to get a perspective from the slum kind of life, because obviously as a tourist you're not really exposed to it that much. So this was a really fascinating book for me to read, and I completely recommend it to anyone who's into social issues, or if you're interested to know more about why is poverty, why does it exist, what are the issues surrounding it and stuff. And it's explained in a very engaging way. It's not like a textbook or something. It's like you're learning it through learning about the lives of these various people, like these very kind of colorful, you know, a huge variety of people. So really, really love that book. I give it 5 stars on Goodreads. It's amazing. And the next book that I absolutely wanted to recommend is another nonfiction book that I read a while ago, and the title is called A Long Way Gone, and the author is Ishmael Beah. Not quite sure how to pronounce his name, but basically it's the autobiography, like he wrote the book himself, it's the autobiography of a child soldier in the Sierra Leone Civil War. Sierra Leone had one of the most brutal and most bloody civil wars, like probably in all of history in Africa. And there was a civil war raging on for years and years, and it had a lot to do with like the diamond industry and like, you know, just government, like who should be ruling and blah blah. So the civil war went on for years and years and years. The story is told from a child soldier. So the author is actually grown up now, and he's an adult now, but he kind of he talks about his life in Sierra Leone before the outbreak of the war, or like before wherever he lived. Like he lived in a very kind of remote, like a village, like a small village in a very remote rural area, and he had like a very normal life, like a very, like, you know, free life as a child. And then the Civil War spread and came to like the area where he lived. The rebels and stuff attacked his village, and like everyone fled because they attacked and like killed everyone. So he gets actually separated from his entire family. First of all, the book talks about what happens after he gets separated from his family, because there's no like central government that's out there to help like these lost children, right? So he's kind of like struggling along, trying to find a place where he can be safe and also trying to reunite with his family. But obviously he's like a little kid, he has no idea how to do that in the midst of this bloody civil war. He gets caught up by the government troops, and actually both the government troops and the rebels actually employed child soldiers, and he gets caught up with this group of army, like an army group, and they enlist him to be in the army. So he's like thrown into this without any way of like, you know, getting help from his family, because he was separated from them. So he kind of gets just thrown into this role. Like he's given a gun, and you know, a lot of these child soldiers were just pumped up on drugs and completely like brainwashed, sleep deprived, so they didn't allow them to sleep. They just pumped them full of like amphetamines to keep going, so they were just total like zombies. And he goes like with this army on these like absolutely brutal killing sprees. You know, they attack other villages. He talks about it very candidly. He doesn't try to, you know, make himself look better or something like that. You know, he really just tells it as it was. In the end, obviously, I mean, he gets rehabilitated. So, I don't know, some non-governmental organization catches a group of these children and takes them to get like rehab. But obviously these children have been like completely destroyed, you know, because this is obviously these traumatic events, like you can't just like erase them, you know. And it takes place during such a formative time, like, you know, when they're growing up, like those years are really, really formative. He manages to escape, and then the book talks about what happens after, but it's just amazing. Like he's obviously someone that I have huge respect for. I have never met this man, obviously. When I finished the book, I immediately went onto Google and like looked him up. He has a website, and I looked up on YouTube several like interviews with him, and he lives now in the United States, and he works with all these, like, I think he works with the UN to help like child soldiers and to stop obviously child soldiers like for that from happening. And he is incredibly well spoken. Like he put himself through college, incredibly articulate. Like when I saw videos of him, I was like, wow, like I had such respect for him, because obviously he went through these like horrible things that happened to turn into like such a well-rounded, very outspoken, but very calm, and like, I don't know, I was just so impressed by the videos that I saw of him. He's obviously an amazing individual, and just the strength that takes, like, to go through this like horrible experience and then to like make something of your life is like incredible. That was another really excellent read. I really recommend that to anyone. It's an amazing book. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye.